Member Sandbeck,
Here.
member Ms. Peterson,
Here.
member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Vellante, here, member Ryan.
Here. Please stand for pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which is standing, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this is a reminder, this is the second broadcasted board meeting, so we're all gonna be famous here. We're trying to get up to what, 4 views this time? So we're gonna have to spice this meeting up a little bit. May I have a motion to approve this evening's meeting agenda as presented? So moved.
Second.
Roll call please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Drinnen,
Aye.
member Sandbeck,
Aye.
member Ms. Peterson,
Aye.
member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Vellante,
Aye.
member Ryan.
Aye. Next one, the approval of the draft minutes. First is approval of draft minutes from the regular Board of Education meeting of June 9th, 2025. May I have a motion to approve the draft minutes of the board meeting of June 9th, 2025? So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Next is approval of draft minutes of the special Board of Education meeting of July 14th, 2025. They have a motion to approve the draft minutes of the special Board of Ed meeting of July 14th, 2025.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Now, the one and only Dr. Felix, we're ready for the budget presentation. FY25 budget. Tentative budget.
Tentative budget.
I mean,
Board of Education, thank you for having here tonight, discuss the 25-26 tentative budget. Presentation that's been disseminated in the board book. The additional presentation notes for you clarified some of the slides. First thing we have to look at is Public Act 1030394 requires us as part of the budget process to divulge our current fund balances for operating 3 major operating funds. So as this chart shows, education fund is currently showing a fund balance of $6,406,000. That is at a current ratio of 63% cash on hand. So for us to be in a position where we would need to submit a plan to reduce our fund balances, we would have to be at 250%. So we're at a place where we're healthy in regards to our fund balance policy, but we're not too healthy where we're maintaining too much money. And that is carried out through all education will have fund. The favorable, unfavorable slide shows us how much money we actually have to have in our fund balances. So, long story short, we our fund balance policy. At our fund balance policy, we're not high enough that we'd have to. That's what that Public Act is showing us. The next statutorial thing that we have to do as part of the budget is we have to present our fund balances currently. It would be our end of fiscal year. So this chart is similar to what we see each month that shows where we started in 24, where we are at the end of fiscal year, but I want to caution this is unaudited. This is very, I mean, this is going to be very close to where we're at. Month over month. But we'll have to do this in the final budget presentation. This slide is also a part of our fund balances, but it shows us an audited position where we are in the financial profile. Again, unaudited, but I believe we'll once hit that recognition, which is the highest score we can have. We did spend a little bit more than we took in this year, so that's why we're not having the full 4.0 ratio. So any questions on that, feel free to email me. We finished the current year or the last fiscal year with 246 days cash on hand, which is above our policy of 180. So we did not fall below that policy. So far. So now for our tentative budget, this preliminary budget was based on information that we had in June, early July. While these numbers give us a fairly accurate estimate of this year's spending, it's important to know that changes to expenditures like staffing, or reductions to state mandated categorical reimbursements could make this different when we have our final presentation. So when we have our final presentation, I'll have already met with the finance committee. They'll go a little bit deeper and have additional numbers that we don't have today, like CPBRT is still not in, and our reimbursement rates for things like transportation and sped aren't completely finalized. So the first slide, or our next slide, is what are the district's major revenues? This, as the graph shows, the education fund accounts for the vast majority coming in, 77%. Dollar amount, total revenue that we're looking at bringing in this fiscal year is $16,500,000. This is lower than last year because last year we received the bond proceeds, so we will not have as much revenue. Expenditures will also be. This next slide, I wanted to highlight just this visual. As you can see, in 2025, we had this yellow, which included our bonds. And this year, that is longer a part of it, which just shows a different view of forecasting for our revenue. What are the district's major expense funds? These fall in line with exactly the revenue. We have educational fund is going to be the highest expenditures. And now we look at a total of $21 million of expenditures. You'll notice that's a $5 million difference in revenues and expenditures this year. That is directly related to the bills that will come due this year on the projects that we started last year. So all of the money that we have budgeted for our addition, refreshes, we received the bonds last year, will be paid for this year. So that's what the discrepancy. Revenue net. I wanted just to highlight this slide for you just to see in the navy blue where we had all other funds last year. Was high, the bond again, and this theme here is that the bond last year generated a lot of revenue without a lot of expenditure, but this year the revenue is not there, expenditure. No. Educational fund, this slide I wanted for you to see that we receive 92% of our fund. Well, that's what this pie chart shows. So the $12.7 million that we received in total revenue, 11.7 of that coming from local taxpayers. On the tax base, our state funding, I've said it probably ad nauseum. Even though the state will contribute more than 50 million extra dollars to the tier, because we're a tier 4, we only receive 0.5% of what is new money, which last year equated to $590 additional total, not per student, but total. So we, again, our state cannot always rely, we don't rely on the state. Educational fund revenue comparison, this just gives a different view. What we talked about in the prior slide, this really shows this blue is what local funds are. Just see the grays, federal. So federal and state is not providing a significant level of funding to us, but important nonetheless. Expenditures by object. Next year, we are projecting salaries and benefits at 83% of our total budget, which is typical for a school district. Teachers are the primary driver of the budget. Purchase services in the education fund at $846,000. Non-capital equipment supplies $732,000. Other expenses $500,000. this slide presents to us where we think, our budget will finish next year. Blue is revenue, orange is expenditures. We're hoping with this, I said, we have different information comes at different times this year. This chart was made, prior to the uploading of the budget form, which after we did the budget form, we noticed a surplus at the end fund. So if you look at your notes, we're seeing a surplus. When we made our original budget, it was, balanced. So the gray button is showing where we should be at the end, if revenues and expenditures balance, that should be exactly where we started. Again, if you add or subtract a teacher, don't need to add a section of something, then I already have that budgeted in. So if we don't add that section, that's something we can either devote for other programming or carry it other places that we. Operations and maintenance budget from 20, again, all local based, that state percentage that's coming in. Once again, we're hoping that we receive our $50,000 school maintenance grant. Sometimes it's available, sometimes it's not, so we'll apply for it and we'll find a project. That yellow, the other sources, and you see actual, I wanted you to see, again, that theme, it was there, it's not gonna be there. Expenditures by object. Had fun, any questions, or the O&M expenditures? Fund balances, projected balanced budgets, and stuff, your transportation revenue, we talked a little bit in the business manager's report that the state has already said that they will prorating the proration of revenue of the transportation claim. So 80% is what the state will give back for our transportation expenditure. They are going to prorate that down 80% of the 80. So our revenue, you'll see when you look our projected deficit in the transportation fund, because our revenues will be. We didn't levy as much in the past because we devoted some of that into the O&M fund. So that's where we're 100% purchase services, what that slide says for student and our special ed bus, which is.
Well, we actually don't need one at the middle school next year, so that should help a little bit. We don't have any students who will be taking the bus there. And we are still able to combine early childhood and kindergarten. I worked for K through 4. I worked with Sunrise on that at the beginning of the summer. So we did have like 2 different buses. So I mean that helps.
Yeah, so this is this slide shows we do foresee the deficit spend, which will drive that down. Still, that balance is very healthy, even with the deficit. We plan to utilize some of that deficit in the prior years for our capital expenditure. So we're still in a good spot if we make that decision again in the upcoming. Debt service.
You say the district seen any like larger influx of McKinney-Vento students last year?
No, actually, I just ran the numbers for our ROE person, Heather, and since I've started, we've been pretty stable. We tend to have about anywhere from 3 to 5 students, but it's typically only 2 or 3 families total. And the majority of what we provide is transportation to taxi service is the majority of what we provide them.
And our debt service budget is driven by our debt service payment, so $50 million that comes in theoretically. So that's typically balanced depending on how we receive about 99.8% of our taxes, so it's very close. Make up, bring it in, interesting. IMRF, this is something for the past few years. We have been carrying a IMRF balance that was higher than we needed. So for the past few years, we have not levied any money in IMRF. So that's why we're projecting budgeting deficit in IMRF. Capital projects that we talked about earlier, that's showing deficit because of the money we received last year. We're not receiving the same amount this year. And working cash, there's no money coming in other than interest income. As we get to the levy, we can probably look at this and say, do we want to build this back up? But right now, we're not budgeting for anything in the levy, but that's something the finance committee can sit down, look at, and take their fund balance policies. See if we need to levy anything else. But right now, as part of the preliminary budget, we're just gonna, it's not interesting. Tort, this is the money we spend for insurance other than medical. This is, we levy for the amount that we need. That all being said, I included a chart in the notes for you that summarized where we're going to start with the fund balance each year, our projected revenues, our projected expenditures, and estimated net fund. Questions so far? Discussion. So the finance committee and I will sit down in the next few weeks. We'll enter any new data that we receive, and we'll do the final budget. Riveting.
And Bendon's not too reliant on title grant money, I don't believe. So for some of that, those delays in funding haven't really impacted the district.
We've been pretty stagnant, or not stagnant, the level at $10,000 for Title II over the past few years since I've been here.
We
Title
didn't
II
get it.
come in.
Yeah, that was the only.
Yeah, so that one, this year was cut. So we are trying to find ways to supplement that. For right now, they say the budget's cut. I mean, they may come back in a few months and say bounce eventually. But Title I last year was about.
We've been, I do think that we were told, I think they cut it a little bit, but not very minor, $4,000 wasn't. You don't get, again, we don't get a ton in federal grant money. They're all pretty consistent and they're all around about 8,000 to 10,000.
You guys aren't right yet, not relying on it too much. So.
No, not currently. It's helpful.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I would say, especially for the early childhood program.
Thank you. All right, no other questions? We are going to move on to administrative reports. So Dr. Jerry, teaching and learning.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the school board and Dr. McGill for letting me report on our teaching and learning activities for the summer. We have a ton of curriculum resources, physical resources that are sitting in our Benjamin small gym right now. When I wrote this, I thought that we might have them over there yet, but we have scheduled that for Friday with Tim Kazmerzak and myself. These guys, we will get them over. They're all sorted and organized by grade level. Is for our science program, K through 6, and our ELA version 3 that was approved for K through 5. And so there are a lot of materials, and we will get them over to the building. We also want to overwhelm the teachers with all their boxes of their own stuff that they're unpacking. So right when they think they're finished, we'll put some more boxes. So just as a reminder, we have completed the Elevate Science training for phase 1 training. And so teachers are ready to go with that. We will supplement that with meeting with them in their grade level team and subject area meetings and make sure that they're okay. Coachly licenses through our literacy grant, we're able to increase those from 1 to 3 or 4. What that does is, as an example, Daniel and Christopher, one of our instructional coaches last year, was our coachly person. So just got direct access to one of the HMH. It's a specific person at HMH that she deals with. So it can work from both ends where She can come up with questions and problems that she wants to meet with them on, or just a general overview of a topic that we'd like to learn more about. And it's pretty much unlimited as far as just as much help as we want, we can get from that. So this year we'll have more of those licenses, one for an additional instructional coach and probably a teacher leader at each building. We haven't designated that yet. And then for the into literature, just as far as supporting that as well, with the version 3, same thing in the team leader meetings and or not team leader, in the grade level team and subject area meetings. Mr. Christopher also sent out an email today, very comprehensive, going through the differences between version 2 and version 3, putting all the resources in one location. Just thanking her for her assistance on that again. Professional development is work with Dr. McGill and the admin team to put together a kind of an outline for the 2025-2026 school year as far as what our professional development is, covering institute days, common early release days, ones that Evergreen and Benjamin shared, and school improvement plan days. Some of the topics that we'll cover is the BenQ training. We're going to kick off the year with that. We have some science and ELA training. We have Dr. Salamoni has scheduled some EL training for our English language learners, for our teachers, and some engagement strategies for teachers to work in their classroom. But it's a working document, and we'll continue to add to it and change it. We've also been able to schedule register us as a professional development provider. Each year I have to do that so that we're able to be a PD provider for our teachers. And when we host things like our Institute Day training, they're able to get professional development hours that go towards their recertification. It can also be used when we bring people in, such as the EL trainer, or bring in somebody from HMH. We're able to give those professional development hours to our staff. Not relying on that. And we have all the paperwork sent to the RWE that covers us all the way through November. We still have the February Institute Day that we have to flesh out, and I would submit that to them. Assessment. So we do have the early IAR scores. And I put in the report that I have gone through and analyzed them according to the previously established state performance levels. That's because they are changing the performance levels. And so basically the early scores didn't come with anything that said exceeds me, approaching. So I just went through and basically took the scale scores from last year, compared them to this year, so we can at least get an idea of where we were at. And then currently like I said, the State Board of Education is meeting with some teachers, other educators, and they're going to come up with the new performance standards. And we're going from 5 performance standards to 4. So before we had exceeds, meets, approaching, everybody's favorite, partially met, so I'm sure what that means, and does not meet. And then we're going to 4 standards, which are going to be above proficient, proficient, approaching proficient, and below proficient. And so we'll see how they arrange the cut scores and how they apply these performance standards. So everything is kind of delayed. So we'll have that information a little bit later than normal as far as the finalized information. But interested in seeing how that all plays out and, see where we're at. So, and then finally, just our mentoring program. We're kicking off with some great new teachers on the 18th. And we have changed kind of keeps growing our mentoring induction program, kickoff orientation. So we are going to have a full day on the 18th, filled with different activities for them. They will get to meet key staff and have lunch with their mentor, talk with Ms. Smith and myself, go through different trainings. And then we separated in tech training. So the second day they'll come in the afternoon on the 19th, get their laptop tech training. So it's not rushed. They have to have like a full half a day with that. And then the following day, they will come in the morning and get instructional coaching on how to use those programs from our instructional coaches. And then Dr. Salamoni has special education training for them in the afternoon. So it's kind of neat. Oh, we're also doing a bus tour. We're getting a school bus and taking a tour first to the restaurant and then to the, each of the buildings, so we can give them a tour, everybody of the new building or the approved buildings. So.
All right, thank you much. Dr. Fields, you're up again.
Yes, operations report, Tim had submitted. Does anybody have any questions? One thing I want to highlight, just given all the work that Tim has been part of. But also, and we toured Evergreen tonight, but sometimes we forget how much work we did at that gym also. Did 12 classrooms, up in hallways, and the lockers. So I'm looking, very excited to bring you on that tour too next September, if we want to see those things too. Yeah. So wants to get that in this trail. The technology report you received from Mr. Mark, was any questions on his report? I do want to highlight the work that he did, as well as Vanessa in the back and her team, getting all of those interactive panels hung in classrooms. It was a monumental task. She had to work around us. She had to work around construction workers. Always smiled the whole time while she did it. So thank you, Vanessa and Greg, for all your work. Ready for staff. Business report, any questions on any of that information? I did include some information about cats. I know that was discussed. Categorical study. Questions?
Thank
It's
you.
my night.
I'm out. Dr. Gill, you were up, sir. Superintendent.
So just a few highlights from my report. Later on, we'll have an action item to approve our agreement with Sodwell Consulting. This is going to be our partner to help us facilitate our very exciting strategic planning process that we're going to undergo this year. Just a brief overview for everyone to kind of understand the scope of this. There is going to be kind of 5 large meetings that an entire strategic planning team are going to undertake. The first is going to be a virtual orientation that the entire strategic plan team will participate in. And when I say the entire strategic plan team, I mean we're going to have student representatives, parent representatives, staff representatives, faculty representatives, board member representatives. So it's going to be a fairly large group, between 40 and 50 people. That first orientation will be virtual. And then there's going to be 3 all-day meetings. The first one is a data retreat, and this is where we will do kind of a state of the district, and you'll hear different presentations from different administrators in the district, kind of highlighting kind of where we've been and where we're at. At the end of that, in groups, the planning team will create a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats for the district. Then there will be a second all-day retreat. That second one is the vision retreat, kind of talking about where we're at now and where do we want to be going forward. That's the mission, that's the vision, that is the profile of a graduate. What are the competencies we want for all of our graduates to graduate with? Profile of an educator, what are the competencies we want out of our teachers? And that'll be kind of that day. Then a third whole day retreat will be a setting direction retreat. This is where we kind of get more granular and talk about, okay, if this is where we want to be and this is where we're at, how are we going to know that we're going to get there? What are going to be our key performance indicators? How are we going to measure our success? And how are we going to monitor that throughout the whole progress, right? So we can adjust as we go. At the culmination of that will be a clear action plan and a scorecard dashboard and a 5-year strategic plan that is really going to help cement the traditions at Benjamin, what has made us great, what is our legacy of excellence here at Benjamin, but also help us highlight edges of growth and say to ourselves, okay, these are some areas that we want to improve on, and give us a roadmap to do that and how we're going to monitor progress along the way. So this is really an exciting time to honor our history, but also kind of pave our way forward. It's a great time to do it in the transition to superintendent. If the timing could be better. So as I said, that will come later on as an action item. The total cost of that action item is budgeted at $18,000, which in the world of strategic planning is very reasonable. On a personal note, I will say that I've talked to numerous superintendents from other districts, and they've all spoken glowingly of this process. It is not a cookie cutter process. This is a process that results in a plan that is really and truly reflective of the district and their desires and their wants for their community, which is what you want out of a strategic plan. You don't want it to be copy and pasted from someone else. But there's a few notable other districts that have gone through it. West Chicago went through this about 6 years ago, and now they're kind of revamping theirs. That's District 33. And then WeGo just did theirs last year. And we actually had a faculty member participate through their process and spoke really highly of it. You can look on their webpage. They have some really nice work products. But what I'll say is, and also Alliance Township was another one, of Brian Waterman, who I'm good friends with, and he spoke really glowingly of Perry, which would be our lead facilitator. And what you'll notice if you look at these processes, is that it is a iterative process that allows for feedback beyond the strategic planning team. So while there's this larger team with 40 to 50 people, after each meeting, there's going to be kind of a status update. Everything's going to be public. Greg has been great in working in the background on updating our websites, that we're going to have a strategic plan homepage where everything's going to be posted, all the agendas, all the documents, so you can follow along. There's going to be opportunities for community to give feedback through various methods of survey, town halls. So even if someone is not a part of that larger group, which is fairly large, they're still going to have an opportunity to give input and see what's going on and then kind of track the progress throughout the year. The goal is by April that the strategic plan team has a recommendation to the board to adopt the strategic plan that we've kind of gone through for the entire year. We do have, as a part of this, also a core team that is a subset of the strategic plan team that kind of needs a little bit extra, kind of before and after, to make sure kind of serve as a gut check to the agenda and things like that. So I want to thank President Rogers and Vice President Peterson for agreeing to serve as the Board of Education liaisons for that smaller team. The Board of Education is going to be invited to all of those big meetings, and you can attend as much or as little as you are able, but you'll be kept in the loop the entire way. I'd also like to thank Sherry Anderson in the audience today, who's agreed to be our union representation at that smaller group, as well as Mark Bradbury. And then we also have the PTA president, Judah, I'm forgetting her last name. Molly, yeah, Miss Molly with an EY. Not the regular one. And so she'll be serving on the smaller team, as well as another PTA representative, in addition to our admin team. So that'll be kind of the smaller group, and that'll be meeting kind of quickly, kind of go quick to go slow, and then go slow then to go fast with our strategic planning. So I want to shout them out because it's going to be a little extra work that even beyond the strategic plan team. But we'll continue to update you as things move forward with that. Are there any, before I continue with my superintendent report, I just want to kind of open the floor to the board if there's any questions on the topic of strategic planning, because I know that's been a topic that we spent our last meeting talking about quite a bit, and I just want to be able to answer any questions that you might have.
Two actually. So the strategic plan, no, it says 5-year plan is the output of it.
Correct.
Is it at year 4? Are we looking to do another strategic plan? What's the lifespan? You said 6 years. I know it's not evergreen, but like what's the lifespan of a strategic plan?
So there's generally what districts will do in a state like ours, where our last strategic plan was done in 2014, and that took us to 2019, and then it kind of lapsed for a period of time. Principals were great on keeping up with their SIPs and aligning to that, but so in a situation like us, we go through a whole revamped strategic planning process. In 5 years, we wouldn't do this whole thing again. We would do a much shorter version of that to tweak and adjust, but also every year we'll be tweaking and adjusting our strategic plan. It's not like we make a plan and then we stick with it for 5 years. So we'll be tweaking and adjusting annually. What West Chicago is going through right now, which is interesting, is they're actually bringing in a lot of other people from outside the district, other principals, superintendents, instructional leaders, and they're going to undergo a 3-day kind of deep dive into how well are they living their strategic plan. Now, we can have that as an option for us, down the road, But really, districts that undergo that kind of intense process are, have a strategic plan for a number of years. So at the very least, in 5 years, that would involve for us updating our strategic plan, bringing people together, probably a committee, probably updating our board goals. We've accomplished some of our goals, like let's, move the bar a little bit. But that would be essentially what it would look like. It doesn't go away.
So long, that's why it's more comprehensive.
Yes, exactly.
And those, like, so those 40 to 50 people are meeting in those 3-day retreats?
That's right. Yeah. 3 full day retreat. And then there's a shorter orientation meeting and a shorter concluding meeting that'll be virtual for those 50 people as well. Any other questions?
Yes, just want to say thank you for your excitement and effervescence in this project. So, remind us what the kickoff date might be, where we
So
first meet for
if
folks to meet.
with board approval later on in the meeting, I'm going to send a note to family and communities tomorrow morning, acknowledging that the board has approved their plan for strategic planning and that there'll be more information coming in September on how they can be involved. The reason for that is I don't want to cloud the start of the school year.
Sure.
We need to keep moving. We need to have everything, our ducks in a row, but really after this, until mid to late September, our focus is going to be on the launch of the school year, supporting our teachers, making sure that they have everything that they need, and not the strategic planning. So in mid-September, we'll do a formal launch. And, the dates aren't set on that, but that'll be kind of a more public. I'll probably do a formal letter and maybe like a video or something, and let everybody know what we're doing and what we're undergoing or undertaking. And then also garnering interest for people that may want to participate on that strategic plan committee. So we're not doing that now, but that'll happen in September after we get the school year up and running, things like that.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, well, I'm gonna keep going on my report. The rest of it's pretty quick. Dr. Fitzgerald mentioned that we have the new faculty and staff orientation, which I'm really excited about. That's next week, and the week after that, our Teacher Institute Day. So as a few of you know, as a few of my admin team knows, I'm working on my opening day presentation. So may I share with you, Sherry, to get a little gut check as well. But I'll make sure I share that with the board. Opening day presentation should really be a big thing, especially for a superintendent. So I got my whole shtick ready to go. And hopefully it's a good thing. And I know the rest of the day is going to be good too. So the first day of that is a whole district wide. So everybody's going to be there. And it's actually going to be right here. And everyone's going to be there. It's going to be great. We have breakfast for teachers. We have lunch for teachers. And then day 2 is building led. So Mrs. Smith and Dr. Fitzgerald will be leading those at their buildings. And a quick reminder, ribbon cutting, August 26th, 1:45 to 2 p.m. It'll be right before supply drop off at Evergreen. And there will also, very nicely provided by Archon, right? Is that Kona ice truck for students. Now they can't take the Kona ice into the brand new building, but it will be there for an hour and they are welcome to have the Kona ice and all the
Wonderful for us to refer to it as the Arcona.
The Arcona ice truck. That's right. Arcona. Very good. That'll be fun. And then we have a few curriculum nights coming up. And so there's gonna be an informal meet and greet. I'm gonna be at all the curriculum nights. And the principals are gonna put that in the newsletter to make sure that people know that they can come and meet me in an informal setting, also while they're here for that event. And then we did have one FOIA request this week from CT Mills. The FOIA wanted all the current contracts the district has on file, and we had responded adequately within the required timeframe. That concludes my report, and actually I have the next one too. The next one is short. It's just a SACIT report. We had our meeting there. I'm not sure how familiar the board is with the current conversation that SACIT has been having with facilities. They are kind of looking for different options to move facilities. They own one building, they lease another, and they want to either add on to the building they own. They're assessing a lot of different options and funding mechanisms for that. So nothing is firmed up at all. They're very much in preliminary conversations, but at some point that will impact us depending on what they do. So at the board, and it's public, so they record their board meetings. So I told them, I said, from our perspective, SAS is doing great. So I said, I would just love to have a clear understanding as to why we need to make these additional investments and what the problems are we're trying to solve and how we can best do that in a way that is efficient for taxpayer dollars. So They were very responsive to that, and I think a lot of them are very in the weeds, and I asked kind of go like maybe a little broader to make sure that if things do come down the road, that we're able to explain the why clearly with our constituents. I know that concludes my reports. Yes, sir.
Board of Governors met Wednesday
Oh, very good.
and they approved their nearly $41 million budget.
Yep.
Got a report on their summer activities. They, due to their different projects they had going, they had consolidated into facilities. So their programs were commingled, which really gave their administrators a lot of time to spend with all the programs because they weren't split amongst buildings. It's found it really positive. Don't be surprised if they start looking around asking about next summer, trying to consolidate. They'll be looking for buildings that might be able to house them in more consolidated areas.
Winfield right next door.
Yeah, they found, well, because what they found is their attendance went up. They had really fabulous attendance this year for their summer program, so.
Right.
We bordered on their in-year school attendance, so.
All right. Now we're moving on to public comment on agenda items. Has anybody submitted a blue card for public comment? Having none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Okay, so for the consent agenda, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Drinnen,
Aye.
member Sexton,
Aye.
member Ms. Peterson,
Hi.
member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Vellante,
Hi.
member Rad.
Aye. Now we're on to action items. First one being the approval agreement with Soldwell. Sodwell Consulting. May I have a motion to approve the agreement with Sodwell Consulting in the amount of $18,000 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that one? Roll call, please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Drinnen,
Aye.
member Sexton,
Aye.
member Ms. Peterson,
Aye.
member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Vellante,
Hi.
member Rogers.
Aye. And next we have the approval of the semi-annual review of closed session minutes and audio recordings. We have a motion to approve the semi-annual review of closed session minutes and audio recordings as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that one? There's a lot of them that are getting released, so we've gone back a good amount of time, so thank you for the work on that one. Thank you. Appreciate you taking a look at it too. So, and, roll call, please.
Member Ingstrom,
Aye.
member Drinnen,
Aye.
member Sexton,
Aye.
member Ms. Peterson,
Aye.
member Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
member Vellante,
Aye.
member Rad.
And now we're on public comment on non-agenda items. I'm assuming we have no blue cards, but let's check anyway. So having none, we will move on to discussion items. So I think we have one item is just, actually two items. We have communication to and from the board, and we have board agreements. I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Okay, so for the draft board agreements, we now have version 2, and they're linked in there with kind of red line, and you can kind of see that it's hopefully reflective of the conversation we had. Again, these are just, this is a policy. This is just a way that we can clarify how we interact, how board members interact with each other, and how board members interact with superintendent and the district. Kind of another word for these could be like norms, right? So informal, but also really helpful in clarifying expectations and the whole no surprises thing. So you'll notice one was added to the behavioral expectations, the focus on policy, superintendent oversight, and student outcomes, not day-to-day operations or management of the district. Very appreciative. And you'll see a few others that are that we wordsmith at our workshop. The only one that I wanted to really draw your attention to, because we had some conversation about the board president being the official spokesman for the Board of Education and the superintendent being the district's chief spokesperson. And we had some conversation about that. Should that really be how it is? And I did actually go back to board policy, and it actually says that exact thing in our board policy 810 under the connection with the community. And it literally says the board president is the official spokesperson of the Board of Education and the superintendent is the district chief spokesperson. So that actually aligns with our board policy. Now, if we want to change that in the future, we could have that conversation, but I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on that it wasn't just that one in addition to being a norm, also aligned with the board policy, so I wrote that in there. But it's now been a month since we kind of looked at these. I just would open it up for discussion. If there are any other adjustments or suggestions for improvement to these, to consider, we can do that. And then the idea would be at our next meeting, we would approve these, and this can kind of be an annual ritual that we go through, maybe not as in depth of a discussion that we had at the last one, but we can kind of just keep these updated as a kind of an annual ritual that we do it before.
I just had one question, I guess, is where are these gonna live once we adopt them? So just so it doesn't become something that we just sit on a shelf and look at.
Yeah, so this would be one of those, so you know, remember how I took everything out of the boardroom? So this would be one of those things that could live over there. That is a giant poster, but eventually we're gonna have our mission, our vision, our profiles, graduated, all those, our board goals will all be up in that boardroom. This would be something else that we can have in that boardroom. And then again, it would be something annually that we bring up, probably at that workshop date. This like kind of a nice time to do it.
Okay. And is this meant to live general just with the board or I guess for public consumption too?
It's for both. I mean, you know, the public would need to know, probably all the details, you know, but it's public and we're talking about it in public. And so I think it's good for them, you know, in some cases, it's good for the public to know if they're wondering why the board is taking certain behaviors or not others. It's good for them to also know, like, what have we decided? How are we going to operate in our business meetings? So I think it could be if it was needed, but it wouldn't necessarily need to be for everyone.
I agree with that. I think sometimes the people can look at the board and not understand how a board works and then
Exactly.
think that it's lack of transparency, but it's not. It's just sometimes that's how a board functions.
Exactly. Well, if there are any adjustments, you can also send them. And if there are any adjustments that you think of later before the next meeting, I'll just add that to my weekly update to make sure everyone's in the loop. And then we'll bring it back for approval in the September meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Having no other business, we're moving on to adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, Benjamin 25 Board of Education at 7:37.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are out. Nice efficient meeting.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.